I would guess that most of us have a place in our homes where we hang our family pictures, right? We choose our favorite pictures, the ones that capture the personalities of our family members or the ones that help us remember those extra special times together or trips together. And we find a place in our home and we hang those pictures on the wall. Stacy and I have this 10 picture frame that we hang on our wall. And it reminds us of the times when our kids were younger. It reminds us of some of our favorite family holidays, our trip to Switzerland and to China, to Washington, way at the bottom to Yellowstone National Park. And I just love to look at these pictures and remember those memories and remember those personalities. When the camera captures the memory, when it captures the personality of the people that we love, we hang those pictures up for everyone to see. Well, in the story that we're going to hear from Jesus this morning, he gives us snapshots, pictures of a family. It's unlike almost any other story that Jesus tells because he gets us to see the personalities of these family members. If you remember last week's story, if you were with us, all we got to know about the characters of these treasure hunters were that one was a day laborer and one was a merchant. And that's all we know about them because their personalities aren't so much part of the story. But in today's story, we get to know each person intimately. And so I want you to use your imagination this morning. I'm going to invite you to do it while I read the story. And then after the story, to use your imagination and to see the photos, the pictures of these family members in your mind's eye. Yeah, kids, if you printed off the worship activity sheet, Stacy gave you 4 picture frames, one for each of the family members. You're welcome to draw a picture if you wish. Instead of just picturing them in your mind, you're welcome to fill the picture frames. But I would like us in our minds, everyone, to see these pictures hanging on the family wall. Pictures that capture the character of each member of the family. Listen to Jesus' story from Luke chapter 15. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger son said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all that he had, and he set off for a distant country, and there he squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and he went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of his servants and asked him what was going on. "Your brother has come," he replied, "and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound." The older brother became angry, and he refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, "Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never even gave me a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fatted calf for him." "My son," the father said, "you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive. He was lost and was found." Now, in your mind, I need you to picture each member of this family. Now, we don't get a description of the mother. Jesus doesn't include her in the story, so you can picture the mother however you wish. Just make sure you hang the picture straight because mothers like to have those pictures hanging just right. But we do get to meet the father in the family, and you need to picture him as a wealthy man. Right? Even though there's a severe famine in the land, he has food to spare. Food enough to feed his servants, to feed his hired men, and to have food left over. He's wealthy enough to have expensive rings and robes and enough food to throw a party at a moment's notice. So he's a wealthy man. But beyond those basics, Jesus gives us a whole variety of different pictures for us to choose from. We get to pick which one we want to hang, which picture of the Father we want to put on the wall. So we could choose the picture of him in verse 12 as he painfully hands his younger son his share of the inheritance. See, this demand of the younger son that he get his inheritance now was a deep and painful insult to the father. This younger son was declaring that he wishes his father was dead, that he would rather have the money than have his father. So it's a picture of a heartbroken father who knows the hurt and the pain that is waiting for his son. Even as he hands him his inheritance, and he can't stop him from doing what he wants with it, he knows that his son is choosing poorly. He knows there's hurt in his future. My guess is some of you know that feeling because you've had to let your children go down a path that you knew would end in pain for them. So we could hang this picture of a tearful, heartbroken father in great sorrow over the loss and betrayal of his son. That's an option to hang on the wall. Picture that father heartbroken. Or Jesus says, we can hang the picture of the father with love and longing in his face. We see that picture in verse 20. We're told that when the son does come back, the father sees him while he's still a long ways off, which means this father spent a lot of time while the son was gone, staring down the road, looking for his son. Picture this father standing on his front porch, staring down that road, hoping that he might see his son, longing to see his son again, missing him dearly. We could hang that front porch picture of the father longing to see his child come home again. But I would prefer to hang this next picture because I'm not sure that there is a picture of greater joy in this book than what we get to see in verse 20. Right, verse 20 says that while this son was still a long ways off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him And he ran down the road to his son, and he threw his arms around him, and he hugged him, and he kissed him. And don't miss that image of this father running to his son, because that's not something a respectable father, a respectable patriarch of a family would do in that culture. They don't run. But that is something that a father overwhelmed with love for his son would do. So he runs to him, he embraces him, and this son has it all planned out, and he humbly asks just to be taken back as a servant, not a son. He's not worthy to be his son. But the father would have nothing of that plan. He is overwhelmed with joy, and he insists on a huge party, welcoming his son back home again. I love this picture. You need to, in your mind, you need to clearly see the picture of this embrace by the roadside. See the father's face, maybe the son's back, but the father's face as they embrace, and picture the tears of joy running down his face. Picture the richness of the father's robe wrapping around the rags of his beaten down son. Picture the father setting aside all properness and just loving this lost son from the bottom of his heart. That's the picture we're going to hang. The picture of pure, heartfelt love. So we have the picture of the father and the mother side by side. Now we need to hang the pictures of the two sons. And since Jesus starts with the younger son, we'll start with the younger son too. And there are some pretty ugly pictures that we can hang here, because rebellious children usually don't take very good photos, do they? We can hang the picture from verse 12, where he's demanding his inheritance from his father. Picture his face as he does that. It's the face of an ungrateful, spoiled, rich kid brat. It's a face filled with selfishness, maybe even hatred in his eyes towards his father, because he doesn't care what his father thinks. He doesn't care what his father wants. He doesn't care how his father feels. He just wants his money and wants to be free of his father. So we could hang that picture, a picture of self-centered pride and heartless greed. Or we could choose to hang the picture we see of his wild living that he chooses instead. We could hang a picture of him with the women and the drugs and the alcohol and the money just wasting away. It's a picture that no father or mother ever wants to see of their son or daughter. Right? Every moral that they tried to teach their son, every value they tried to instill in him is turned upside down. Every hope and dream that they had for their child is dashed. And again, some of you know this picture because you know this pain. Maybe this is the picture of one of your children that you love. Maybe it's a picture of you because you are that rebellious child. These aren't the kinds of pictures that we proudly hang on our walls, are they? So we're going to leave that picture down too. But the next picture isn't much better, because the son goes from the top of the world down to the bottom of the heap in just 3 verses. Right? In verse 16, we see him ragged and covered in mud. He's sitting with the pigs that he's now in charge of feeding. And before he dumps the bucket of food into their trough, he's tempted to pick a few pieces, a few of the best pieces of slop out for himself because he's so hungry. All that he took from the Father, all that he was given is gone. What he thought would be so fun has destroyed him instead, and he has nothing left, no hope to hold on to. It's another ugly picture, and so I'm not going to hang it because that's not where Jesus leaves this younger son. Instead, I'm going to hang this picture of the son standing by the side of the road again, dumbfounded, with an unbelievably huge grin on his face, with tears of joy streaming down his face, because his father has welcomed him home again, because his father has embraced him. Or maybe I'll hang the picture we get to see in verses 22 and 24, where we see him probably with his hair still a mess, all dirty and grimy, probably still kind of stinky, still all messed up, but now wearing an expensive robe from his father and wearing his family ring, and now with sandals on his feet. Because in that culture, sons wore sandals, servants went barefoot. And this father has said, you are not a servant, you are my son. You wear the sandals. It's a picture of someone who has lost everything only to find what was really important. Right? He found his father's love. He found home. He found a relationship that he never knew he could have. He has done all the wrong things, and we have the pictures to prove it. But now he has a relationship with the Father that he wouldn't trade for anything. That's the picture that we're going to hang. So right next to the picture of this Father's unbelievable love is the picture of the Son who has received that love. His Son who was lost and now who is found. So we have a pretty good looking family so far. We have the mother and the father at the center, and we have this loved son who came back home again, hanging right next to the father. But there's one more son. There's one more picture to hang. It's the oldest son, the good son, the responsible son, the proper son. And this son has been faithfully working his father's business just like dad expected him to do. This son has been responsible with his money. He's been obedient. He's been respectful. He has done everything expected of a loyal, dutiful son. And Jesus in his story only gives us one picture to choose from. We don't have any options. We get one picture of him to hang. It's a picture of him standing outside the house, refusing to go in, refusing to join the welcome home party that his father is throwing for his little brother. And we see the father pleading with him. Please come in and join, celebrate with us because your son is alive and he's home again. But there he stands with his arms crossed, with his sandaled feet firmly planted where they were outside the party, scowling in anger. You need to picture his face, angry, full of hatred. There is no love there. There's no love for his brother who has ruined everything. And there's no love for his father, who he has never loved. Right? Remember, he said to his father, all these years, I have been slaving for you. He saw his father not as a father, but as a slave driver. He hates his father. And so we have this picture of a son who's so concerned about doing what is right. He's so concerned about being responsible that he's missing out on love. He has no love for his father. right? The overwhelming love of the Father that we see in the picture of the Father, that he has for his younger son, he has for his older son too. He loves that son with his whole heart, but the son won't take it. He's done all the right things, but he doesn't love the Father. So there are your four pictures. Mother and father, tears of love streaming down the father's cheek, embracing someone. And that someone he's embracing in the picture is the younger son that we see pictured right next to him, overflowing with joy at his homecoming party. And then there's this older brother, the righteous one, angrily glaring at them all. And Jesus gives us these detailed emotional pictures. Why? Why does he want us to know these people so intimately? Well, first of all, he wants us to see the Father for who the Father really is. He wants you and he wants me to see God the Father as someone who loves his children with an unconditional love. He wants us to see God our Father as someone who sets aside all properness and pride and runs to us to embrace us with all of his strength. He wants us to see God the Father as someone who welcomes us home with tears of joy streaming down his cheeks, even after we have insulted him and abused him. He wants us to see God, our Heavenly Father, as someone who is pleading with us to enter into the joy of a love relationship with him. You know, we can talk about the love of God, and we can teach about the love of God, and we can hear about the love of God. But this picture is worth 1,000 words. Right? If you ever wonder what God is really like, look at this picture and see the radical love on his face and know that it's a love that he has for you. Jesus tells us this story because he wants you to see God, your Father, clearly. But then he also wants us to look at these family pictures and to find yourself in one of the pictures, to identify where you fit in the family. I would guess that some of us would have to choose one of the pictures of the younger son, maybe one of the pictures that we didn't choose. Because maybe some of us are that self-centered, greedy son, and we only care about ourselves. We don't care about the Father. We haven't left home, but we certainly don't love our Father. Or maybe some of us are that rebellious child, living selfishly for ourselves. We've taken all the good things that the Father gives and we have claimed them for ourselves. Or maybe some of us are broken and alone. We've hit rock bottom like that younger son feeding the pigs. We know what it's like to be sitting in the mud. Or maybe you're the younger son who can see yourself in the embrace of the Father. You know that God has graciously welcomed you back home again as a loved son or daughter. And you found that real relationship of love with him. If that's you in the picture, the one being hugged by the Father, then you have great reason for joy, right? You have been found. You've been welcomed by the unconditional love of God. Some of us are the picture of the younger son. I would guess others of us find ourselves in the picture of the older brother. But we are the responsible, dutiful ones who have traded a relationship of love for a slavery, for thinking we need to do all the right things We traded it for a life of rules and righteous responsibility. And we're more concerned about doing the right things than we are about being in love. And we're really good at judging the behaviors of others and judging our own selves. But we aren't very good at hugging, and we aren't very good at loving. And did you notice in the story that this older brother never touches anyone? He keeps his arms, his judgmental arms crossed. There is no love. There is no relationship. There is only righteous responsibility. And of all the pictures that Jesus gives us, it's this picture that breaks his heart the most. Right? The younger son broke his father's heart, yes. But he came back home and he found the true love of the Father. But this good son, this righteous son, he's the one who's truly lost. He never left home, but he doesn't know what home is. He never rebelled, but he doesn't have a relationship with the Father. He never left, but he also never loved. So Jesus is inviting each of us in this story to hang our own picture on this family wall. After all, this is the family of God, and all of us belong to the family of God. So where are you going to hang your picture? Are you going to hang it next to that younger son, the rebel, the worldly partier, the rock bottom broken one? Are you going to hang it next to the picture of the younger son, the welcomed home one, the loved one, the loving one? Or are you going to hang it next to the loveless face of the older brother who does all the right things but doesn't love the Father? Wherever you see yourself, make sure that you're turning your eyes towards the center to see the picture of the Father again, to see him holding you in his loving embrace, and see his unconditional love for you, his longing for you to come back home, and his tears of relief when you do. See his joyful celebration for you, his child, who comes back home. So whoever you are, whatever you've done, and wherever you are right now, the invitation from the Father is there for you. Come back home. Receive the Father's love. Fall in love with the Father again, because he loves you.